Is the new GP Bellingham actually better than the popular Nominating Contract one? You might be surprised. Here comes Pepper. Welcome everybody! Today I will not only give you a training and skill guide for the new GP Bellingham for 2 positions, no, I will also compare him to the Nominating Contract one that so many people use. Let's get right into it. This here is a very offensive build as an attacking midfielder. 4 points in shooting gives him just enough finishing. Also 4 points in passing for him to reach 80 at low pass. This is actually more on the lower end, so if you prefer more points in passing, reduce lower body strength or dribbling for it. 10 points in dribbling make sure he can be quicker and more agile with the ball. 10 points in dexterity are important because balance, acceleration and offensive awareness are 3 offensive key stats. And also 10 lower body strength to give him the top speed for counterattacks, great kicking power and the stamina to make sure he lasts the whole game. Now, this is a generic, purely offensively minded build. If you have a formation where the attacking midfielder is important for your defense, you could remove points from dribbling or lower body strength in favor of defending. You could also adjust the build according to your playstyle. If you're, for example, somebody who doesn't dribble much, you could reduce dribbling in favor of shooting, passing, or whatever else suits your style most. As for skills, I would only add some if you have a lot of GP and skill trainers, because after all, this is a GP card and you might find a better attacking midfielder in the near future. If you absolutely want to add skills, he definitely needs through pass and long range shooting. I would also recommend weighted pass and low lofted pass on him. This will make him a great passer even without incredibly high passing stats. The last skill is up to you. Super sub if you plan him as a sub, acrobatic finishing is a possibility, any additional skill move that you prefer is a decent choice, you can decide. Now, I gave the Nominating Contract Bellingham a similar build in order to be able to compare the two, which is what comes next. The GP Bellingham is a whole player, which is a style many like for attacking midfielders, whereas the contract one is a box-to-box player, which means he will be without playstyle as attacking midfielder. Let's look at the raw stats. They are without any manager boost, but since it is that way for both cards, it should be fine. The gap in offensive awareness is gigantic, 15 points in favor of the GP card. That makes a massive difference. Dribbling and passing is a win for the Nominating Contract card, but it's really small. +5 in finishing for the GP card, however, is pretty significant. Speed and acceleration are almost equal, and kicking power actually is the same. +4 points at jumping for the contract card is a notable difference, but jumping should not be very important. The +8 in physical contact, however, is massive because it helps in dueling situations. Stamina is almost equal. Defensive stats, however, is a big win for the Nominating Contract card. So, in my opinion, if somebody were to say that the GP card is the better attacking midfielder, I could understand that because at key stats such as offensive awareness or finishing, he's clearly better, and also he's a whole player. Still, overall, I'd say it's a very close match and down to preference. Now, let's take a look at a build for a central midfielder, which has to be more balanced. 3 points in shooting should be enough here. 6 in passing this time, because as a central midfielder, he will also be playing longer and more difficult passes. 9 points in dribbling for quick movements with the ball. Only 4 in dexterity, because offensive awareness and acceleration are not quite as important compared to an attacking midfielder. We keep the 10 points in lower body strength to maintain the top speed and the stamina. We go for 4 points in aerial strength since the first 4 points are most efficient, and a bit more physical contact and aerial stats are alright. 7 points in defending this time, because as a central midfielder, the defensive stats are really good for duels and interceptions. Skill wise, it's very similar to the attacking midfielder, although I would not consider acrobatic finishing this time, but blocker becomes an option instead if you like. Now, same procedure as before, I gave the Nominating Contract one a similar build to be able to compare them, and that's up next. This time, the box-to-box playstyle might be the better one, as it's really popular among central midfielders, whereas a whole player could be a bit too offensive for many, but that's up to formation and individual preference. The massive gap in offensive awareness still exists, but is a bit less crucial this time, as it's less important for a central midfielder than for an attacking midfielder. Dribbling is now slightly in favor of the GP card, while a Nominating Contract card wins in passing. 4 points difference in finishing is notable, but again, a CMF won't get to finish as often as an AMF, so it's a bit less important than before. 6 points is quite a difference for heading, but heading, while I wouldn't consider it useless, still isn't a core stat for either CMF or AMF. This also goes for jumping, by the way. The contract card has 8 more points in physical contact. This is big, because I consider physical contact a lot more important defensively than offensively, making it a lot more valuable as a CMF. The nominating contract card is also faster, but only by a tiny margin. Kicking power is the same, just like before. The nominating contract card wins balance and stamina, but only by a little. The defensive stats, however, that's a massive win for the nominating contract card, especially since the 85 aggression will trigger the +3 manager boost. So while it is still not a win by a landslide, I would give the victory to the nominating contract card here, because for a CMF, I consider the defensive stats and the physical contact more important than offensive awareness and finishing. Considering the nominating contract card was and still is extremely popular, it's quite remarkable that a GP card comes this close and is perhaps even better for some people, especially as a purely offensive attacking midfielder. You can of course also use the build for the CMF as an AMF if you like. I hope this video was useful for you. I'd love if you subscribed, liked or commented. Until then guys, take it easy. Shaka!